Hey guys, Mr. B here, and today we're taking a look at Arbites. Yeah, that guy. Remember him from like 2 months ago? I know we haven't talked about him in a while, and he has remained relatively sort of steady ever since Fat Shark fixed all those bugs after they got back from summer break, and that's where he stayed up until this patch. Now, there have been a couple of changes with this patch, so we'll go over that in a second, but if you're worried about where the Arbites has ended up, let me just ease your mind right now. Still the most powerful class in the game. Really not even close. The Ogren was just behind him. The Ogren got a couple of nerfs, and if we're looking at the disparity between the nerfs that the Ogren got and the nerfs that the Arbites got, I'd say the Ogren got hit harder. The Arbites got 1 or 2% shaved off his power. And if Fat Shark is attempting to nerf this guy to be on level with the other classes in the game via death by 1,000 cuts strategy, it's going to take us approximately 10 to 20 years at this rate. So I would not exactly be worried about the direction that this character is going in. Let's go ahead and begin and talk about some general stuff that's changed for the class. Oh, and a reminder, if you are not yet subscribed and you want to keep up to date and understand everything about Darktide and just, enjoy this sort of content, yeah, hit subscribe and comment or whatever you need to do. Say what's up in the comments. Appreciate you. Okay, so a really big thing that changed for this class is the baseline toughness changed. They nerfed that down. It used to be that the Arbites had 100 base toughness. So he had 100 base toughness, and then he has two 25 toughness nodes in the tree. You can see them right here. And these were guaranteed pickups, right? Because they're in the line of the tree. There's no other nodes in the Arbites tree, unlike some other classes where if you take a certain path, like on Veteran, you can pick up extra toughness there, or if you want to pick up more actual talents, you'll have to forego those instead. For the Arbites, his what would normally be minor nodes are just right there in the tree. So he always had 150 base toughness, which made him one of the most toughness having characters in the game with no extra expenditure. And that was kind of broken. So they nerfed him down at a baseline to 80 from 100, and therefore he's going to at cap have 130. And then of course that baseline gets multiplied by all your curios. So it'll have a slightly greater effect than just 20 toughness at the end of the day. But is this going to hurt him overall? Really probably not, right? Most of the RBD strength comes in regenerating that toughness super fast and making that toughness very, very durable. So yeah, 20 points, it sucks, but also he's going to be fine without it. That's the only major thing that changed for this class, just as the class. The rest of it is all going to be in his actual talent tree, which we'll take a look at here. First of all, we need to talk about two of his abilities. These are the other really big things that changed. One of them is Break the Line. Break the Line is exactly the same in terms of its charging and the duration and the timer and the cooldown and all that stuff and all the add-ons here. One thing that happened with it though is they have made it count as blocking during that charge. So if you've got the really short distance charge without taking engage, then it's just going to be a brief moment, like a half second. But if you've got engage for that extra 7.5 meter long charge, that's actually quite a long time during which you count as blocking, and that can make a lot of difference. What was going on for Arbites before was you would charge in with the intent of knocking down an enemy, and they would get an attack off on you during that charge, and you could be killed outright or knocked down outright through it, which made no sense, right? For the Zealot gets iframes during his charge, right? He can charge through range attacks and all that sort of stuff, no problem. The Ogren just recently got that feature added where he can just run straight through gunfire, but the Arbites was getting destroyed if he charged into a sniper. Like if he was blocking and then went to charge that last little 1 foot to bump the sniper could actually shoot him in that gap and he would take damage, and it was silly. So now he counts as blocking. Even if you just have a regular melee weapon, you'll have your block up at least, so you can block melee attacks, say a Crusher's winding up or something and you charge into him, at least you'll block some of that. But if you charge with your shield out, you'll have the shield up, and so you can block ranged attacks as well, which is very nice. And it definitely makes sense. It's not a huge power boost or anything, but it's a quality of life thing, and it makes sense with the way that the ability looks and should work. The other big change to abilities, or not abilities, but this one is for a Blitz ability, is Remote Detonation. Remote Detonation previously had 3 charges, which is the dog explosion, right? Now it only has 2, but they've lowered the cooldown by 10 seconds. What this is doing is they are attempting to remove some of the chain CC, chain stagger from the game. Clearly they nerfed all of the other classes' cooldown reduction because they thought it was getting a little bit ridiculous that you could do Chorus. Then when the chorus is done, Veteran Shout, then Ogren Taunt, and then by the time that's all done, you could have the detonation on the dog, and then you could detonate the dog again, and then you could detonate the dog again. Bosses are literally showing up and then getting shoved into a corner and then just being like, just crowd CC gangbang to death before they can literally move at all. And it's really hard to, you know, balance the game or have bosses feel like a big engaging threat when your one guy with a dog can chain CC the monstrosity for 10 seconds consecutively. So they've lowered this down to 2 charges, although they gave it that faster cooldown, and that way you just can't like CC. It's cutting the amount of crowd control you can do sequentially by 50%, which is a big deal for them. And if you'll notice that like the other things I named in that list of CC effects, all of them got nerfs to their cooldowns as well. So like Shout is going to have a longer cooldown because Weapon Specialist is gone, or not Weapon Specialist, Tactical Awareness is gone. Chorus got a huge nerf to its cooldown, and so did it get a 5-second nerf to the Taunt cooldown. So they're really trying to remove these AoE CC effects and how often you can spam them, and this is one of them that got caught in that sweep. Okay, so those are the really big ones. Let's go through the rest of these, and you can post in the comments and tell me if I hadn't told you. Actually, here's a good exercise. I'm going to hover over the talents, and I'm going to tell you that this talent has been changed, and I want you to post in the comments if you have one that you think you could tell me what the change was. Okay, we're starting out right here, and I'm not going to tell you whether these are buffs or nerfs or changes or what. We're going to start out right here with Razor Jaw Augment. Enemies knocked away by your Cyber Master's Pounce have 6 stacks of bleed applied to them. You know, Jeopardy music or whatever. Tell me in the comments, what was this before? What was it before? That's right, guys. Before, it was 8 stacks of bleed. So is this talent still good? Probably not. So the problem with bleeds in general in the game is that bleeds are the weakest of the damage over time effects. They are one of the easiest to apply for the classes that have access to them, but bleeds fall off very, very quickly. Literally, bleeds start falling off the second after they're applied, and they fall off like 1 stack every second, and they do exponentially more and or less damage as you gain stacks, right? So 4 stacks is way less than 6 stacks, which is way less than 8 stacks proportionally. It's not just linear progression. So 6 stacks does a considerably lower amount of damage than 8 stacks did. And I think one of the reasons why they're swapping this to 6 stacks is because on lower difficulties, say when you're playing on like Malice and Heresy, and I haven't tested this, but this is my guess. If you had Razor Jaw Augment and you're playing in those lower difficulties, well, the dog running around and pouncing on enemies, on like a crowd or something, 8 stacks of bleed is enough to kill those horde enemies on lower difficulties. And so you would probably just have a dog, even 2 dogs in your team, and they would literally just kill almost everything for you, because 8 stacks of bleed on, you know, scaled down HP enemies just bleeds them all to death, no problem. So 6 stacks, I am almost guaranteeing it hits some sort of break point where like on X difficulty, it's not going to cause them to bleed to death without you having to do anything, because no one wants the dog to literally just play the game. That would be very boring. So that's what the changes has been made here. I definitely don't think this talent is very good anymore. It never really was all that great, except for the period of time where it was like stacking crazy bleeds on everybody. But I think it's reached kind of a happy medium there, and honestly, it's not that useful in its current iteration. We are going to go down a little bit further here, and we're going to look at this aura node right here in the middle. Ruthless Efficiency. You and allies in coherency gain an additional 12.5% reload speed. What was this reload speed before, guys? Do you remember? Do you remember? It was literally like just a week ago that it was different. In fact, the truth is that it was 7.5% reload speed, which made it comically like one of the worst auras in the game on the strongest class in the game. I mean, 7.5% reload speed is smaller than a minor node that the veteran has access to. It's a very, very small amount of stat boost, and there's a lot of classes that don't reload, that just don't care, right? Like, and you have to be within this aura. So this was just a bizarre choice. I couldn't really see choosing this over either of the other 2 options, right? Even if you were going a gun-toting route, you'd come to here, and then you could just go over here instead, right? Or you come to here and you could just go here instead. The very limited uses, but with 12.5%, honestly, it's not half bad, especially if you got a veteran on the team who's going to benefit as well. So they're definitely buffing that up because that was very weak before. We are coming down even further, and we got to talk about Justified Measures. Now, Justified Measures, 2% damage on successful attack, 5 max stacks lasting 5 seconds. Do you remember what this was before? It should be pretty obvious if you know the classic joke about Arbites. That's right, this was one of those classic 15% damage nodes that the Arbites had, perhaps even the most iconic of them, because this one is literally always active. The dog's attacks count towards your attacks, so when you get the dog up, he's just running around and keeping this topped off all the time. So you're literally just rocking 15% damage 100% of the time, which was quite silly. So they've lowered this to 10%. I am certain that Arbites mains out there are in shambles over that huge DPS loss. And finally, we got to go down to this bottom left tree and look at execution order. Now, good luck picking out what thing in this node here changed. You know, without looking it up. The part that here changed, I would not be able to guess. Even for, you know, all the talent tree reviews and stuff I've done about this, I would not have been able to pick this out. It is, in fact, the damage amount here. Not for the dog, but for us. If you had asked me, I would not have even said that execution order kills gave you a damage buff. I knew that they gave you toughness back, but apparently they also gave you 15% damage and 10% attack speed for 8 seconds after killing one of these marked dudes. Now it just gives you 10 and 10. This is still insane. This is still easily one of the strongest, if not the strongest Keystone in the whole game. I'm hard pressed to think one that's stronger. And yeah, it's insane. So yeah, they're lowering that by 5% does not matter, guys. So if you play with both of these nodes, which you were if you were playing this Arbites build, you're losing 10% damage, but you're not losing 10%. You're really losing, like, it depends on how many damage boosts you have, but you have a lot, right? So you're losing like 10% out of your overall probably increased like 90% damage. It's like you're losing a 10% of your increase, which is a very, very small fraction of your overall damage, probably like around the area, the ballpark of like 4% or so. So not hurting Arbites at all, and really like this class is going to be just fine without it. Because remember, a lot of his strength also comes from the baseline strength of his class weapons, which are all very, very, very strong. And that is everything on the Arbites, guys. You know, the only things here that are really going to affect your playstyle that you might notice at all is you're going to have a good bit less toughness with that 20 toughness, that flat toughness resistance or reduction, and then the change to remote detonation is probably going to be the only other noticeable thing here, having only 2 charges max instead of 3. But those are all very mild changes in the grand scheme of things, considering how very incredibly powerful this class is as compared to everybody else in the roster. But that's it. I hope it was illuminating, and I'll see you soon. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye-bye.